No, I'm not sure how many people are arguing with the suspension for Falcons pass rusher James Pearce Jr. He's been suspended 8 games. And this is one that I'd been waiting for. I'd been looking for because the accusations and even the charges against him, the allegations were fairly serious and got a lot of attention going back to, was it goes back to much earlier in the year, but I think it was February. But part of the reason why it got so much attention is because the allegations of him trying to use his car as a weapon to run into a car that was driven by his ex-girlfriend is because she is a professional athlete, Rickea Jackson. And so at the time, it maybe made more headlines because of her status as a professional athlete. So he was accused of all kinds of things of, like I said, trying to use his own vehicle to repeatedly run into her vehicle to keep her from escaping. She was trying to get to a police station after this domestic dispute broke out. He then fled the scene after trying to crash his car into hers repeatedly and scaring her and obviously leading her to try to get to authorities. He then took off and he crashed his vehicle and also forced the authorities to pursue him on foot after he left his vehicle. He was also accused of resisting arrest. So there were felony charges that he could potentially face: aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, and that's the car in this case, fleeing police, resisting arrest, stalking, all kinds of stuff in there. Well, as it turns out, going back to the spring, so this happened in February. Actually, I think it was Super Bowl weekend, if I remember. And he, in May, agreed to a pretrial intervention program. Okay, so to avoid serving jail time or going through the actual court process, as long as he stays out of legal trouble for a year, he passes drug tests, and he doesn't go anywhere near Jackson, the charges will be dropped. I don't agree with this, but I'm not part of the legal process, just as a female understanding. And I've not ever had an ex stalk me, but I have had another stalker. It's terrifying. And sometimes the threats, even if they only come online or in messages through social media sites, I mean, they're scary. And so thinking about it from her perspective, the fact that she felt imprisoned, trapped, couldn't get away, and that she was afraid of him, it feels like that shouldn't be dismissed simply because he stays out of trouble and doesn't go near her for a year. A year is not a long time. In fact, we're halfway to it being a year now. But the NFL has stepped in and maybe sent a message in that without pay, he will have to serve an 8-game suspension. So if he's worried about his livelihood, maybe the structure of being around the Falcons in the preseason, and of course during summer workouts, will remind him what he has to lose. But an 8-game suspension that he is not appealing, actually. And so his suspension begins at the end of August. He's not reinstated until November 2nd. And so the Falcons will not only lose another pass rusher. Remember, they also had lost one to, was a torn ACL earlier in the preseason. So their pass rush is in dire straits. But that's football. This is real life. And the fact that his ex-girlfriend believed at times that if the authorities didn't step in, that this guy was going to kill her. I mean, she's got a protective order against him. This is serious business. So I do hope this is the last time we talk about this dude and his suspension and the fact that he's, pursuing her and chasing her. Like I said, it feels like a year is not a long time. I don't feel as though that's a stringent enough or strict enough. It's not a sentence, of course, but a punishment for him, or, a program that he has to go through. But that's what the courts decided. That's what, the two attorneys in the court settled on. So I hope that she is safe and that she's away from him and that he's given that part up. But really, football is something he stands to lose. And there's also the part about the Falcons, right? If they feel like he's not reliable or they can't count on him or they can't trust him, then of course they could cut him too. But at this point, he's still with the team and is suspended until November 2nd. And James Pearce is the major headline, but there was another one opposite end of the spectrum that I think really incites compassion from a lot of people, especially because this is not a unique situation for Titans cornerback Nazeeh Johnson and his wife. It's definitely a challenge that many American families and couples go through, and that's fertility issues or either trouble getting pregnant or getting pregnant and then losing babies, having miscarriages. And so when he shared his story and his wife confirmed it, I was really feeling compassion for them. He's trying to make the roster with the Titans, but now is facing the suspension. 6 games is what the NFL handed down. And I'm torn because I understand both sides of the equation. So from Nazeeh Johnson's perspective, he and his wife had just lost a baby, and after going through a miscarriage, I guess what they found out according to them is that he's the one that's got the fertility issues. So he was taking or had started taking fertility drugs, and he did not check to see if any of the substances that were in these fertility drugs were on the NFL's banned substances list. This has happened before. It's not the first time this has happened. We've I think at least 2 other examples of players taking fertility drugs for their personal lives and trying to build a family outside of football. And it turns out that one or more of the substances in those fertility drugs were also on the NFL's banned list. And so he's suspended for violating the NFL's performance enhancing drug policy. I have compassion for him and his wife because of what they're going through. And I understand why other football fans might say, hey, this is not fair. The dude's just trying to take care of his family. He's trying to, sure, he's trying to make a roster, but football's not his life. He wants to be a daddy. They just lost a baby. And he did put out a statement that I thought was open and candid, but also probably painful, that they were trying to conceive. Again, he found out he was the one that was having the issue. So he started taking drugs and he wasn't aware that there was a substance in the medication that would pop positive on the NFL's banned list. And he said, lesson to all new players is that, or to play new players, but also existing NFL players, that you've got to be aware of every little thing that you put in your body. He did also say too, and I thought this was really hopeful, but also just hit me right in the heart, that they still do have a certain number of good eggs that are preserved. His wife does, and they're going to continue trying. I know there are billions of people that have gone through IVF and fertility issues. I've got friends myself that have struggled with that. And so my heart goes out to him. I can't imagine the pain that he and his wife have felt, and now to almost have it be a double whammy where he's got to serve the suspension. But on the other side of things, I certainly understand why the NFL can't make exceptions. Now they might, I'd have to go back and read again to see if they're appealing. They might end up reducing his suspension. Okay, if maybe the doctor weighs in or there's some indication that yes, in fact, this was the only time he took the drug. The issue is, of course, that if the NFL starts making exceptions for one guy who uses a fertility drug, who's to say? Now, I'm not accusing Nazeeh Johnson of being dishonest and making this whole thing up. His wife has confirmed it, that that's what happened, and that also that the NFL went ahead and didn't. Oh, so they denied his appeal. Excuse me. I should have seen that in the headline. Oh, see, sometimes we as Americans, we only read headlines. I actually didn't read the headline. I just went down to the story. So his wife is now saying that the NFL has denied his appeal. And I get it, because if you have one guy who is taking fertility medication for the right reason, and somehow, and I don't know all the science, I don't know the drugs, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but somehow it can be a performance enhancer. Who's to say that the next dude isn't going to say, well, he got away with it because he's going through fertility treatments. I'm going to try it. What's the difference? I can just claim that I'm going through fertility treatments. I can have a doctor, whether a doctor subscribes it or lies for me, blah, blah, blah. I don't know of a situation where this has happened, only that it could happen. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can circumvent the process if all it takes is a doctor's note and fertility treatments. So my heart goes out to Nazeeh, and I do hope the Titans are compassionate and understand. At the same time, your physical body and what you put into your physical body, that is critical when you are a professional athlete. And eh, I know that he wants to share this lesson with other pro athletes and NFL players, but the thing is, there are other guys who already went through this. So maybe he should have learned the lesson and familiarized himself. And I think the bottom line is there are two things that I feel like pro athletes have got to know, just because it happens over and over again, and it blows me away that it's the mentality of I'm not going to learn from someone else's mistakes. I've got to make my own. I mean, how many kids do that, right? Like, parents will say, do as I say, not as I do, blah, blah, blah. Do it because I tell you, do it because I'm older and smarter and wiser. But a lot of times, young people, and I did this too, we want to make our own mistakes, and we got to know maybe it'll be different for us. Well, in the case of pro athletes, how many times do we have to hear about them getting arrested or getting jailed even for driving when they're under the influence of alcohol or drugs? If you're a pro athlete, you have the resources to be able to get a ride, even if you think that you're fine and should have no trouble. I feel like it's a hard line. It's black and white. If you're out, if you've had alcohol, let's hope not recreational drugs. But if you've been drinking, even if it's 2 beers, why not get a ride? That way you don't have to worry about it. So that's one issue that I think should be black and white for pro athletes, so that you never have to be concerned that you're going to run into an issue where you get arrested and something like that happens, even if you don't think it's an issue. Tony Romo should have known better. Everybody who gets behind a wheel as a pro athlete should know better because of what you put on the line. But this is another situation where I feel like, as much as I have compassion for him, I do have so much compassion for him and his wife, and I love that they're trying to have a family. But the thing is, as a pro athlete, there should never be an instance where you put anything in your body. I don't care if it's a 1 a day vitamin. Never take anything or consume anything that you haven't run by a doctor or a nutritionist. Or how about this? The guy that is in charge of these types of things at your facility, the training staff, the nutritionist. There are people that you can consult in your own building. Now, maybe you wanted to keep that part of your life private. Fine, then go to a nutritionist that you hire or your own doctor to figure it out. But that has happened so many times where athletes have used a substance for a different purpose, but it turns out that there are nefarious ways that it can be consumed and they end up serving a suspension. So I hope it doesn't ruin his 2026, because the Titans would be well within their rights to say, hey man, we need that roster spot. We can't afford to keep you for for these 6 games, and to have you on the roster when we need your help and you're not available. And furthermore, you were fighting for a job anyway. I hope this doesn't cost him his NFL season. It's a really tough lesson to learn. I feel terrible for him, to be sure.